I think that one stays with me because you feel it's a feeling of total powerlessness while someone you love is just literally being beaten to death.
To give context to just how dangerous a place South Africa was back then, talk about going to the anti-apartheid concert.
Americans don't understand that the rest of the world is not like America. You know, when we have a lot of very difficult things happening in the world today, and I feel empathy for all of those situations, just like the average American. But America is just not the rest of the world. It's just not. So during the 80s was the fall of the apartheid, and it was very complicated because there are 27 tribes, black tribes. There are really two white tribes, Afrikaans and English, and they hate each other more than the black on white situation. The history of the fighting between the Dutch and the English, it makes most wars look tame. And then the black tribes all hated each other for their hundreds of thousands of years of history. And so the level of violence was just extraordinary. Walking home from school, you're in fear all the time, mostly of white people, not of black people. And that's just the nature of the day. And we would go to these anti-apartheid rallies and concerts. It was very much, we were part of that movement that was, it was a social movement, not just political. We take these trains which were very dangerous. There were trains that there were a lot of train car massacres where there was black on black violence, where they would just get on the train and just start killing people with machine guns. And that was just kind of part of the day. It was it's messed up to think I used to live in that way and just kind of accept it. But I remember getting to this concert and the train doors open, and there's two black guys, and there's one black guy, I just caught the end of the fight, takes a knife and stabs it into the side of this guy's head, like right there. And this guy just drops dead, boom. And you're on the train, you've got a whole bunch of people behind you want to get off the train, but you just got this dead guy in front of you. You're like, oh shit. And it's just the pool of blood just starts pooling all over the ground. And you just, as a kid, I'm 16 years old, and you're just like, oh. So I just take a step in the pool of blood, because you can't avoid it. And I remember for like about 100 paces, just the stickiness of one foot, like one sneaker, just, you know, and I just like, you just move on. You know, you can't allow yourself to process what just happened. You just move on. But the one thing I'll never forget is that stickiness of the blood on my sneaker. I'll never forget that.
Elon getting severely beaten up at school, and then the subsequent berating by your dad. What about that makes it such a painful memory for you, even today?
Yeah, that was so brutal. So back to the white on white violence. So this was white people attacking white people. I was sitting next to Elon, and these guys come up to him, 4 or 5 guys, and they just start beating him senseless with their fists. There's nothing I can do to help. I just have to sit and watch this. I might have done something. I can't remember. Like, you're just in this like trance of what's going on, and they had the intention to beat him to death, and it was just awful. It was just the most awful thing to witness. My brother's face was unrecognizable. It just wasn't, it was just a swollen lumps of someone that had been almost beaten to death. And yeah, that's just South Africa in the 80s, man. It's just so brutal.
I can tell, even watching you talk about it now, it still
hard,
affects
yeah.
you. Why?
I mean, I love my brother. I think that one stays with me because you feel, it's a feeling of total powerlessness while someone you love is just literally being beaten to death, and you're just powerless. I think that was still one of the hardest things I've ever experienced.
I wanted to ask you briefly about your dad. I wonder if not for him, do you think you would have still had as much success as you ended up having in life?
You know, I think there are ways to teach your kids to work hard, take risks, without torturing them. I mean, we lived in torture. It was a emotional, psychological torture.
Because he would make you stand there for 2 to 3 hours
Yeah,
and
like
just
literally,
scream
like
at you.
it was insane. And not just that, he would make up things that were not real, and then you'd spend 3 hours listening, and then you sort of like, maybe he's right. Maybe that is true. So it's a psychological torture. I don't know how else to say it. I think that what it definitely did do was give me and my brothers this absolute fear of going back. You know, so
How so?
like I remember even talking when I was in my early 20s with my brother. We were at dinner. Business might fail. You know, we're like, this is just, you know, one of those days where things are just done, and we just, yeah, we're not going back. So we have no choice but to keep going, keep trying.
To what extent did it ever concern you, having gone through that at some point in life you could develop some of those same traits yourself?
There's sort of nature versus nurture, right? I think that the parts that are nature, I can't fix that. And that being said, as I've gotten older, I've learned how to nurture myself, and my wife has also really helped me to have a relationship with my kids that's very different. In fact, it's completely different to what my parents had with me, and it has a more deeper emotional connection, and at the same time, I believe my kids are going to work very hard to do pretty amazing things and take risks. There's this concept of secure attachment, and this concept of chaotic attachment, I think is the term. And I had this kind of chaotic attachment with my dad, which was a lot of love, and then here's some insanity, and then you're just totally shaken up. Oh, no, and there's a lot of love, and then this is insanity.
And that insanity was what?
Was
it
just
violence
like,
at times?
no, it was never physical violence. It was never physical. It's just, but it was very violent in verbal ways. It was a verbal abuse, but it was hours and hours. It wasn't like, oh, I remember this one time you said something. No, it was just constant, or it was absolute love, and you just don't know what to expect. So I think what I've been able to do with my kids, which I have had to work on, is this concept of secure attachment, where like, yeah, I think you might be doing something that is, I don't agree with. All right, I still love you. I'm here for you, but I'm going to speak very openly about that. And I think that's a training that I've had over the years. And I think it's going to work out pretty well for my kids as a result. I hope. You never know. They're going to get therapy for something. I'm not trying to be perfect. That's for the birds.
Could you ever envision a day where that relationship's able to be repaired?
It really doesn't occur to me. You know, I think that I've left that one in the past.